Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Sports Extra. I'm your host Ahmed Nawaz with the latest roundup of sports. Let's take a look at what we're discussing. First of all, of course, the final test match between Pakistan and Australia at the SCG, and Pakistan's captain Shan Masood winning the toss, putting Pakistan into bat first, and it was all haywire for Pakistan when they lost their top 4-5 wickets early on. But Mohammad Rizwan, credit to him, and also Salman Ali Agha and Amir Jamaal at the end. Their cameo produced a brilliant display of late batting for Pakistan, making sure that they crossed that psychological 300 runs mark. Pakistan all out there. But then again, in reply, I was just saying that it's good to see that Australia didn't get enough to bat on. So tomorrow it's going to be an all new day. Australia didn't lose any wicket at stumps and they were about 6 runs. So Pakistan's got a ball with a fresh start tomorrow. That being said, we've got to discuss many things in detail. Pat Cummins' brilliance, I think, continues to surprise us as a skipper, not just 2023, but looks like that this year again he's going to be amongst the wickets. Brilliant bowling once again from the Australian skipper, so we'll talk about that in detail as well, and Australia's chances and how Pakistan can now capitalize on the way Amir Jamaal has really performed well for Pakistan, because I think a lot of people have just jumped on the bandwagon saying that our missing link of an all-rounder has now been solved, but the fact is that how many test matches are you playing in the next year? That is something that you got to worry about. And that's the only way you can produce players. And I also said it the other day that even if you want to rate Sajid Khan, you can't rate him on the basis of 7 test matches that he's played. You got to look at the numbers and then try to rate a bowler. So that will be interesting when we discuss that in detail as well. Then we move on to Pakistan's T20 series against New Zealand. New Zealand have announced their squad for the T20 International Series that begins on the 12th of this month, and we'll discuss that in detail as well. Time now to introduce our guests. First of all, in studios joining us is first-class cricketer and cricket expert as well, the voice on many platforms, Kashif Majid. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, sir?
Walaikum salam. Thank you, Ahmed.
Great to have you on the show. We've also been joined by sports expert Mr. Malik Usman on the show. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, sir?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing well.
Great to have you as well. Now let's take a look at the highlights of day one's proceedings between Pakistan and Australia in this report. Right, we're going to get to that now. We're just going to get that report queued up. It's just been well left so far. But in that report, we'll analyze day one and we'll, of course, discuss it in detail. But, until we get to that report, Kashif, win the toss, bat first. Pakistan, I thought, would have been fairly comfortable, but the opening spell once again did it for Australia. How do you analyze it?
I guess again, the comfort of playing in the subcontinent versus the hardships of playing in the Australia that took the toll to the Pakistani openers. Talking about Saim Ayub, we highly rated that guy. We have talked about him, but a new ball in any ground in Australia with the likes of Josh Hazlewood and Mitchell Stark, it's just not easy. But for Abdullah Shafiq, most probably it's a sign of concern from my end too, and so many other cricketers too, because as a technically correct cricketer, you don't get out on these sort of deliveries with these sort of shots played pretty early in your innings in Australia. Maybe it's SCG. Yes, we can talk about this is SCG, not the Perth or the Melbourne, but still you have to behave like a mature opener playing down under. But let's come up to the conclusion of that day. I guess Rizwan, how can we come to the conclusion of asking him to sit down in the very first test match in the Perth? And this shows that Rizwan's fighting spirit is still there, and so does Amir Jamal's fighting spirit. So most probably for me, gain for throughout the day or throughout the series is the fighting spirit shown by these young lads, and taking a fourth inning, we have bowled in the fourth innings and we have taken like 3 innings complete, 10 wickets for Australia. So this is the gain for me. With this bowling lineup, we have achieved something very spectacular.
Absolutely. I think it's no less than remarkable. Who would have thought 47 for 4 up till 300 plus runs on the board? But like I said, it's the cameos that count. But Usman, first of all, I think Kashif mentions a very important point, that the only difference of playing Sarfaraz and Rizwan was, who's suited for which condition. But if Rizwan is scoring runs like this, then I think it becomes an automatic choice. And also, I think if we can analyze Salman Ali Agha or Amir Jamaal, it's the same talk that we've had throughout the 2 weeks, that this is the key to playing in Australian conditions.
For Rizwan, I would like to add a point that Rizwan has the best average across 3 formats in the past 1.5 year. So whichever pitch it is, and dropping Rizwan, I'm at my wits end. I still don't understand why he was dropped in the first test. No matter how Sarfraz was performing, he was your best batsman in World Cup as well, and in that sorry campaign. And once he's back in the side, he's making a mockery of that decision that he was dropped in the first test. And as the games are progressing, he's getting better and better. And what could have been had he been playing in the first test as well, although it was a one-sided game. But coming back to the Pakistan's performance, I think it's very, very good performance when you look at 47 for 4 and then taking 313. I think if it was given to Shan Masood at 47 for 4, he would have to grab it with both hands. And for once, Pakistan has done what their captain actually wanted, to play as many number of overs and play briskly, and they have ticked both the boxes here. And that has been a good omen for Pakistan side. Sydney pitch was going to be the best suited pitch for the Pakistanis, and they will take 313. And with the day ending tomorrow, fresh day, they are going to virtually start from zero. I think Pakistan, if they are going to pick a couple of wickets early on with the ball doing a bit, we could see the wicket of Babar Azam, how the pitch was behaving, and if they get a bit of that for the Pakistani bowlers as well, I think we have a game on our hands.
Absolutely, I definitely think we've got a game on, and I'm really interested to see that first session tomorrow. But that being said, we've got the highlights for day one. Let's take a look at this report.
Pakistan skipper Shan Masood won the toss and elected to bat first in the third test against Australia at Sydney Cricket Ground as David Warner prepares for his final test match. Pakistan made 2 changes, granting a test debut to Saim Ayub in place of Imamul Haq, while resting Shaheen Shah Afridi for off-spinner Sajid Khan. On the other hand, Australia remained unchanged lineup for David Warner farewell match. Earlier, the green shirts were bowled out on 313 runs in first innings. Openers made a disastrous start. Debutant Saim Ayub and Abdullah Shafiq were out for duck. Mohammad Rizwan remained top scorer with 88 runs and took Pakistan out of a crunch situation. However, Jamaal took the limelight after his sensational 82 runs. Jamaal looked solid with the bat and smashed bowlers left and right as his innings featured 9 fours and 4 sixes. More, Agha Salman added 53, Shan Masood made 35 and Babar Azam scored 26 runs. Skipper Pat Cummins claimed 5 and Mitchell Starc bagged 2 wickets for Australia. Australia will resume their innings on the second day of the third test with David Warner 6 and Usman Khawaja 0 on the crease, while Pakistan is leading by 307 runs. David Warner, with an impressive record of 8,695 runs, aims to conclude his test career on a high note.
Well, there you have it. Day one's highlights in this report by Sabah. And of course, we've got the details now that we were discussing as well at the same time. Kashif, particularly if we can talk about Babar Azam right now, I thought he got going today and he looked very confident. But then again, that channel where he's been struggling, and there was a complete analysis post-day as well on that one channel where Australians have been bowling him at the good length area and, you know, getting one to nip back in or go out, and that's been the case where he's been getting out. So you can analyze that. And also I remember you mentioned a very particular thing the other day, that he's not trusting the bounce in Australia. I would like you to elaborate on that as well.
Okay, first there were a lot of talk of the town that his fitness is not up to mark. The lean Babar Azam we all came to know. We wished that Babar Azam to be part of the Pakistani squad in Australia again. And unfortunately, he's slightly on the bulkier side. What happens with the batsmen who've been there with the quality fitness he has got in the previous tour? The most important thing is your hand-eye coordination tends to get slightly slower. With the Babar Azam, tactically very good, technically very good, this hand-eye coordination has to be on the top, on the absolute mark. And this time around, for me, it's slightly on the slower side. Every ball nipping into him, he is slightly slower to respond to it. Second important thing, trusting to the bounce means I can come up with the example of Damien Martin. The way he has played in Australia, it's all back foot. The Usman Khawaja can be the example. It's all back foot because he knows the ball pitching up to him will be around a half volley, because length ball can be managed on the on the back foot. So this is where Babar Azam was slightly shaky in the first two tests. I know for the fact because in the Perth, when he got out in the similar over, Pat Cummins' delivery was slightly on the lower side. It didn't bounce according to the length of the ball, but he got out in the very second or third ball with the ball hitting his thumb. So this is where he was slightly tentative, but you have to forget all those slight hiccups when you are playing, and you have to trust the bounce, manage your feet movement, and try to be more on the back foot. I can come up with the example of Damian Martin, even Mitchell Marsh, the way he's stroking through the point region, or the way he's playing his pull shot. And one important thing, when you start your innings and you have managed 20-30 balls, start playing your strokes. Make sure that the aggression part of yours can come out against the Australians, because the way Amir Jamaal hit those 2 sixes with the pull shot, there was no plan B for Australia, and they were like bowling to a batsman and seeking a request, please get out, we have got no option to bowl you out. So this is
where
where
to get Manas Labuschagne to bowl those overs.
Yes,
that's the
so you have to attack Australia, because they are not used to it. I was just talking with Mr. Usman, the way Ben Stokes used to do with this Australia, with a couple of innings in the even in the downer and then England, you have to be aggressive in a very calculated manner.
Absolutely. Usman, that technique can also be gauged in the way Salman Ali Agha was playing. As soon as he got a couple through the middle of the bat, he immediately shifted gears, and that is from where Pakistan picked up that aggression later in the innings as well.
See, I would like to talk about two things. First, your question. Once you get going, you have to trust your method, you have to trust your technique, and you have to trust the method which has brought you to this level. If you know you can hit a couple of boundaries, go for it. Don't get intimidated by the opposition. Again, what Kashif Saab was talking about, complete agreement, I would just like to add my little bit of it. See, Australians, for that matter, if you look at the history as well, those players who have attacked Australia as batsman or bowler, they get intimidated by those players. And there has been a history of that. You can talk about Ben Stokes, you can talk about Virender Sehwag as well. And there are a couple of players you can talk about. But over here, what happens is none of these Pakistani players, they like to take on the Australians. And with probably the fear of failure comes into it. Once Babar gets going, these 20-30 odd runs and then getting out, that means he's losing concentration. And one reason for that is the technique that the Australian bowlers are trying to deploy against him, the in-swinger. See, you always have a plan against the bowlers and the batsmen. The problem is with the execution, and you have to respect the Australian bowlers with their execution, even Mitchell Marsh for that matter. So once again coming back to your question about Salman Ali Agha, so once he got going, he's confident because he's scoring well in Australia in this series. So he was pretty confident and he got going, and once again a good 50 by him. A player at 6 or 7 scoring a good 50, I think he has done his job.
Well, that could be the case, then I think, can we call it, Kashif, that the transfer of weight, like you mentioned as well, that your back foot or your front foot, the transfer of weight is something that maybe our batters for the time being, and I won't call it a shuffle because that becomes a different argument, but if you look at the dismissal of Abdullah Shafiq or the dismissal of Saim Ayub, so you tend to probably gauge that the feet were stuck at one point.
You know, trusting to the bounce, coming back to that theory, it's a very technically correct theory when you are used to of playing in certain conditions. For instance, in Pakistan, the moment you see bowler pitching a length ball, the first thing in your mind was to go and have a block or play a front foot drive, because the ball ultimately will be reaching you around your leg height or the knee height or most probably the waist height. But bowler pitching a length ball in Perth means maybe you are ducking to that ball, or maybe you are playing up your chest height, and simultaneously that is going down in the Sydney too with the new hard ball. Once it is slightly older or softer, you can manage either way, or in the front foot or in the back foot. But once it's a new ball, it's a shiny hard ball, first day, first session of a test match, the wicket will behave slightly harder, slightly quicker, and will assist the fast bowlers. This is where our openers have to learn to spend some time and pick your shots. It can be a cut shot, it can be a flick of the legs if the bowler persists, or it cannot be a pitch drive, or you can say getting on the top of the bounce can do for you, but it's just not easy in the Australian conditions. So most probably not entirely the technical stuff, but most probably pick your shots. Usman mentioned about Virender Sehwag. It's always about the cut shot. You cannot let go a ball of a cutting cut length to the wicket keeper's gloves, thinking that you will get a freebie of the next over or in the next ball, because you have to create your shots against the Australians, so does they can change your line, not you who will be making the certain changes.
Absolutely, take your chances, and I think that is one of the reasons, Usman, why we saw that Rizwan was so successful. And I understand people tend to rate him as a one-dimensional player who can wham any shot towards the square leg area or the deep mid-wicket for a six. But if you look at some of the cuts he was playing, he was absolutely sure that he wants to play them. So I think the way to go about a short ball outside off stump was to place it through third man.
That is one way of looking at things. Is he's excellent at both sides of the squares, isn't it? And he has a good short arm jab, and he's extremely successful at it. If you have your strengths and you can rely upon them and you can execute them precisely and perfectly, you don't need to worry much about your game. As Kashif Bhai was talking about, that let the opposition try to change their plans, not you. You can do a thing or two. See, cricket is a kind of a chess. You have to outmaneuver your opposition every ball. And once you get into the heads of the opposition, things can get into your favor as well. So if you get a couple of good boundaries or a couple of good attacking shots, like the cut shots we are talking about, Rizwan. See, many a times it is overhyped that a couple of shots or a couple of ways these players play. They are one-dimensional, two-dimensional players. But once a player is in the side playing Test cricket, he has to have an overall game. We can agree with that. There is no player in the world who has a complete game, who is good at everything in an equal manner. So you are going to have your weaknesses, you are going to have your strengths, but it is up to you that how you manage your strengths and how you hide your weaknesses.
Well, I think that is one way that we can analyze this as well. But then again, sometimes once you put the pedal to the opposition and when you come up with certain shots, that makes even a captain of the caliber of Pat Cummins think twice. And that's why I think the field was moved back to the boundary. They even started bowling with Labuschagne, because as Kashif mentioned, that as a captain you feel that nothing is working then. Because that counter attack, I think that 100 runs, 150 runs Australia will feel that they've given to Pakistan, courtesy of Amir Jamaal and Salman Ali Agha, the way they were playing, and of course before that Mohammad Rizwan as well. But also to analyse the skipper Shan Masood, decent performances, but then again it's just that one day where he can convert it into a big score.
For Shan Masood, I totally agree. Pakistan found a captain out of chaos, a quality captain out of chaos, and for me, it's just not the captaincy. I want Shan Masood to score runs so that he can cement his place in the side as a test captain, and simultaneously he can be a good player in the middle order or the top order in the one-day matches too. For T20, we have to think twice, but for one-day and test cricket, I guess he can be our go-to player. So when we talk about a captain's change and in the Pakistani lineup, that changes the whole mentality of the team. When we talk about the previous tour, it was always about a skillful player scoring or taking wickets. Okay, not taking wickets, but just scoring runs in Australia, likes of Rizwan, likes of Babar Azam. But this time around, even an average player, please excuse me, but even an average player which we have thought cannot score in Australia, for instance, I have sitting on this chair, talk about Salman Ali Agha. Maybe he cannot be at that quality of a player down under, but the way he has handled the situation,
adapted to the situation, yes.
Because from in here, from his mindset and his heart, he was involved in the game, because everybody was talking about the aggression. They were on the spot that they cannot let Nathan Lyon ball his spell according to his will. They were consistently taking chances against him, and he got just one wicket, I guess around 100 runs or 80 odd runs. So this is the plan. They were quite sure they cannot let go. Both Rizwan and Salman Ali Agha, they cannot let go any loose stuff around the off stump. One important thing, maybe the answer is long, but one important thing. Josh Hazelwood bowled a quality delivery around off stick, which is slightly moving in or out. Rizwan, any other batsman can go for that drive towards mid-off or covers. Rizwan knows that this is his weakness. He hoiked that ball over the square leg fence, asking Josh Hazelwood, you cannot ball on this length. So Josh Hazelwood has to change his line, adjust his line, and that adjustment actually is a relief for Mohammad Rizwan, that okay, this is fine. He'll not be bowling to my weakness. Now he'll be thinking anything different, and that different can be my strength.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant argument, because we've seen Rizwan that when he's trying to make that stride, he often that weight or the head falls down, and he's struggling with that ball that is swinging late as well. So probably because of the shorter height and the power and trusting the bounce ability that he has, it's better to probably slog it for a 6 towards mid wicket and square leg. But then again, he's playing to his strength, and you don't mind that as a player. And I think they will take it as far as runs are on the board as well. But Usman, how do you analyze Shan Masood's performance so far? And like I said, one inning away from converting that, and I think number 3 has suited him as well. Had Pakistan still, if they believe that they don't have a option with an opener, maybe you can move him up there, but then the question will come, who are you going to adjust in that middle order?
Oh, that's a good question actually. I would just like to add to the point of Kashif bhai was talking about captain out of a chaos. I just want to add, it was a similar thing that you are throwing the names on the ball and you are hoping that one of them will stick, and that has to be Shan Masood. I think he's doing really well. The first 2 test matches he has done well, but I think you have to give a couple of games more to understand that how good he has been, because this was a tour where you had nothing to lose. Your team director before departing to Australia said that we have nothing to lose on this tour, and suddenly he pops up with that press conference where he says that we played better than the Australians, but we lost by 80 runs. So that is fine. As far as his captaincy is concerned, I think he's ticking many of the boxes and he's doing pretty well with the very mediocre bowling attack as compared to the Australians. I think he has given them a run for the money. The pitches have helped as well. But as far as his batting is concerned, see, if you are scoring so freely and you're playing so well, I understand that he wants to give a statement to the Australians, and he also wants to send a message to the team that this is how I would like my team to play. He's getting 50-60 odd runs and he's scoring them pretty briskly. It is very unfortunate that the other batsmen are not chipping in as he wants them to chip in. But once you get 50-60 odd runs in Test cricket, you need to get a big 100. And once he gets one big inning in that manner, let's hope he gets it in the second innings in Sydney, I think we have a really good chance of winning the Test match. What we are doing is we are scoring 30-40 odd runs. That is what Shan Masood is doing slightly better. He is scoring 50-60, but I don't think 50-60 win you a Test match. His captaincy is pretty good, but I think he needs to do slightly better in one day in his batting. I think once you have a good form, you need to cash that in, especially when with the likes of Babar are not performing that well. And Rizwan chipping in with 80, Amir Jamaal adding a few, you can give a good tough fight to the Australians, and probably you can end up winning one Test match, and that could give him a lot of boost as a Test captain.
But Usman obviously and Salman Ali Agha, because he's got back-to-back 50s at that number. So automatically we see that if we start from Mohammad Rizwan, that 5, 6, 7, 8 debate is then solved. But then again, we do come up to the opening that becomes the biggest clue. But obviously, all the talk can only be justified when Pakistan had more Test matches in the span of next 1 year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I was thinking about this once you were questioning it. Saim Ayub, you have given him one-off Test match. After 10 months, you're going to get another Test match. I'm not so sure, even if he scores 100 or scores a 50-odd run. Forget about the 100, we'll talk about the 50-odd run. How are you going to analyze his performance in one-off Test in Australia, and how is he going to feature 10 months later is a question to be asked. If you wanted to give him a run, you could have given him a whole series and you could have judged. Pakistanis don't play too many Test matches, and you're giving him a run just because he has done well in domestic. I agree with that, and Pakistanis have given a lot many people debuts in the past couple of months, and we talk about with so less number of Test matches and that youngsters don't get a chance. I think once you go to the records, you would be pretty surprised. A one-off Test match in Australia against the like of full-fledged Australian bowling lineup who are going full throttle. I think it has been slightly bad luck for the Saim Ayub, but let's hope he gets a good innings and that gives an onus to the Pakistanis with the way they are going to play their test cricket in the future. For that matter, congratulations to him on his debut, but someone like me would have liked that if Imamul has been dropped, Shan Masood, who prefers opening an innings, should have opened against the new ball against the likes of Hazelwood and Stark.
Absolutely. Kashif, how do we better adjust this scenario when you're not, as a cricket board, do you need to bargain to the ICC that, maybe schedule our series back to back? We've got a World Test Championship calendar as well. Maybe the ICC can look into a format where teams can be playing back-to-back test cricket when there is no other form of cricket. And I do understand that a lot of people would raise the question that you have a T20 World Cup in June, so they want a focus to be there as well. We're probably one of the last countries that is facing a problem where we don't have players for specific formats, but one-dimensional players are playing across formats.
So let's come to the point that Pakistani players needs to play T20. Okay, we know how to play T20 because long ago when there was no chance of England coming up with this format, it started way back in England. We were still playing T20 in Karachi, maybe in the likes of Ramzan Cup. We've been playing this format since I was like 10-15 years old, starting my club cricket, because at that point of time Ramzan was in winter, so we can manage a 20-20 over match. So we know how to play T20, and yes, we've been privileged to be part of that era. When it started, we were the first ones to reach into the final, then winning the second T20. So coming up with this argument of Pakistan gets to a point that we want to practice T20 matches before the start of the World Cup, it will be no good. Because sitting here, we've been talking and we've been going through Australian bowling lineup in the ODI World Cup, that this bowling lineup is a test quality bowling lineup because they know how to bowl consistently on a good length, and that adds to their quality in India when it was a 50 over World Cup. So when we talk about Josh Hazelwood, when we talk about Pat Cummins, when we talk about Mitchell Stark, they are quality test bowler and can be adjusted in any format. If I am wrong, just go and find out the amount bracketed for them in Indian rupees when they were sold out for the IPL, because they value the quality and the consistency of a fast bowler. So as far as ICC not giving Pakistan test cricket, it's also the board to be talk about that Pakistan Cricket Board has to come up with the plans and has to make a lobby around different countries that will be playing test cricket in your country, and you'll be visiting our country in the next tour program. So this has to be done by the PCB, because Ashes was way before present in the calendar. Even ICC was not formed, then these two countries were playing Ashes, and they still are playing Ashes. Then they have created so many trophies around their so-called rivalries, like India versus Australia is a rivalry, and I'm not sure why, but this is a rivalry. But it is a rivalry. So this is and the Trans-Tasman rivalry. New Zealand and Australia is a rivalry. I'm not sure why, but it is a rivalry. So they have created those rivalries, and Pakistan needs to do that.
Absolutely. I think there was even a concept of tri-series happening in Australia as well, and that used to be something smart just to get the cause of one-day cricket promoted as well. But Usman, it's interesting that if that calendar isn't adjusted to what suits you of back-to-back test matches, or at least 2 to 3 series that are in consecutive fashion, that then, as Kashif said, then create a rivalry, create a bilateral series then.
Why would they create a rivalry when they don't want to play that format? It tells a lot about how the other than the big three boards, how the other teams are taking test cricket. Look at what South Africa has done for the tour of New Zealand, and there is a lot of talk about it now, and they are talking about you have to pay heavily if you want your players to play test cricket. See, one of the things is money, and money is very important. We have to agree with that, and with the players preferring leagues and T20 cricket, you are not going to get many players playing test cricket. If you are going to force them, they will take retirement from test cricket. I think still test cricket is the pinnacle of the format, and you want to be considered as legends of the game, you have to be good at test cricket. That is one thing that Pakistanis as a board and the players are not preferring that much, and you can see Shaheen Shah Afridi has been rested because we are having 5 T20s. You have been rested for a 5-day game to play 5 T20s, which would be coming with a gap of a day or two after every T20. So this is the preference of your board. I completely agree with Kashif bhai that you have to create rivalries, you have to market it, you have to get more sponsors, you have to pay good amount of money to the players so that they just don't get heavily paid, but they also become legends of the game. Once you are playing 6-7 test matches a year, you don't need to shuffle too much with your test squad, because a good performance or bad performance is always going to go under the carpet. Look at the teams like England, 17 test matches, India 15 test matches, and they are more than double the matches Pakistanis are playing, and you are going to rust out your great players who can become the greats of the game in test cricket just because they are playing too few test matches. Talking about India and Australia, I completely agree that how is that a test rivalry, but now you have a border Gavaskar trophy for that. So they're keeping a name of the trophy as well. Kader won, and you can create rivalries, promote it, and then you can get the public into it, you can get more sponsors, and you have to pay a good amount of money to these players, otherwise you are going to lose your stars to T20 cricket.
I mean, Usman, it can be put into a perspective that because we're playing a very smallest tiny share of test cricket, then obviously then our domestic performers who are performing in the Qaid-e-Azam trophy, we're forced to give them T20 debuts because of the current performance, because we don't have that format to give them a debut in.
I agree with that, and if you talk about the 2023 World Cup one day, many analysts talked about that if you want to pick players for the one days and you don't have good one day players, pick test cricketers, not T20 cricketers. That is one thing we are lacking, because we pick our squad mainly from those matches which are telecasted, that is PSL. How many of your selectors goes to watch first class cricket? I am not so sure. That is not even telecasted, so you don't get too many sponsors for that, you don't get too many stars from there. So how are you going to fill up your test team for that matter? So you have already players playing the test for international cricket. You find it very difficult to drop them and bring someone from the first class cricket who is not so hyped about.
Absolutely.
If you allow me, Ahmed, okay, let's find out the cricketing heroes of Pakistan for the last 20 years. Mainly Shahid Khan Afridi. Have he been a test cricketer?
No.
Look, let's talk about Shaheen Shah Afridi. He's always good with the new ball in the T20 format. The famous Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli wickets. Okay, Rizwan, because so Babar Azam, because he is number one T20 batsman and the ODI batsman. anyone else for the last T20. The best test captain when it comes to the statistics was Misbah for the Pakistan, and he was widely known as Tuk.
Yes.
So this is how we actually prefer a test cricketer, or what we call a test cricketer. If as a nation we do not create heroes from the test cricket, we no one in our kids, no one in our youngsters, no one want to play test cricket, because ultimately they'll be talked about just the way we talked about Asad Shafi. He was a player who plays 70 odd consecutive test match for Pakistan, and nobody knows him.
Yes.
He was the one who signed off in a T20 format. He was the captaining the side. He captained that side, and he won that tournament for the very first time for the Karachi, and he just left the stage, and nobody knows.
He's captaining a side today in the President's Trophy.
And again, nobody knows him. No?
Absolutely.
We haven't created.
I mean, the last hero we produced in Test cricket was got to be Yunus Khan. I think nobody after that. And the fact is that even what Usman mentioned as well, Kashif, even Azhar Ali at a point when he was playing Test cricket and he was on a chaos basis drafted to the one-day side, he did spectacularly well in the Champions Trophy. I mean, people do talk about Fakhar Zaman, Hassan Ali 2017, but Azhar Ali's innings was also one of the most remarkable innings that we had seen there as well. So probably that is the case.
Even still, I still remember that final. Fakhar Zaman was struggling, and Azhar Ali was finding the middle of the bat. I still remember a pull shot down the face of the bowler from Azhar Ali against Bumrah, I guess. He just pulled that shot straight down the ground. So he was that class of a player, around 8,000 runs, and playing around 100 tests, 80 odd tests. I'm not still sure, But nobody cares about us. Nobody talks about us. Nobody talks about us. Like, even you said for the Yunus Khan.
Yes.
He is the captain who won the T20 World Cup for us, and he was a player who has scored 10,000 runs. So if you want to be a test hero, or if you want to be a hero, you have to score 10,000 runs to be recognized as a cricketing legend for Pakistan, and this is just not easy. It's not easy money, believe me.
It's not easy, I understand. You even scored 1,200 runs in a domestic first-class game in a season, and then you're drafted into the one-day side and you're playing T20 cricket for a franchise. So all chaos happens in Pakistan, and I think that will be the case. I think the fact is what both these gentlemen and what I mean as well is that you have to produce heroes in test cricket. Even if you go right now to academies where you have a handful of youngsters in the nets and who are practicing, you ask them what they want to do, and they'll probably, I think, identify they want to play T20 cricket. You would hardly get somebody who would want to say we want to play test cricket. Even the concept of having 3 days for under 19 and under 16 was discouraged in the past 2 years. So I think that is something that we really need to focus upon. That being said, day 2 tomorrow, definitely we're hoping for Pakistan to have a spectacular first session and get some wickets, and that probably is going to trouble Australia. Now, of course, we move our focus to Pakistan's tour to New Zealand. That happens right after this series where we're playing T20 cricket particularly. New Zealand have announced their squad as well, and it's interesting because what I see in that squad, and we'll have it up on your screens as well, is that it's a complete New Zealand squad. You won't say that they're trying to make any experiments. They're going with their strength, with a complete T20 squad, and there you have it. Kane Williamson, the captain in games 1 and 2, 4 and 5, so they keep him for the then Finn Allen, Mark Chapman, Josh Clarkson, who might get a debut in the 3rd game, Devon Conway, Lockie Ferguson, Matt Henry, Adam Milne, Daryl Mitchell, Glenn Phillips in there as well with a spectacular run that he's been enjoying so far for T20 cricket in New Zealand. And like I said, that he gets through as well. Then Mitchell Santner, Ben Sayers, game 1 and 2, Tim Saifutis Sudhi and Tim Southee. Usman, complete New Zealand squad, and that's where I think it's going to be interesting because it's going to be Shaheen Shah Afridi's first ever assignment as captain for Pakistan.
That was actually expected. I'm not surprised that they have announced full strength squad because you are going to get very limited international T20s before the World Cup is on the horizon. And it's good that Pakistan is going to face a full strength New Zealand side in New Zealand. I think it's going to be a challenge and a good start for Shaheen Shah Afridi as an international captain. I agree that being a franchise captain is pretty different from the international captaincy because there is a lot going on. It has a totally different dimensions for that matter, and if he gets a good start, we all hope he gets a good start, Shaheen Shah Afridi, as a bowler and as a captain. I think it can do wonders for Pakistan because now the talks about that defensive captaincy and too rigidity shown by Babar Azam in the past could now be changed, but mind you, Babar Azam once took the team to the semi-final and they just lost by a whisker with that David Warner, Wade's hitting 3 consecutive sixes and losing the final in Australia when Shaheen Shah Afridi got injured. So on both the occasion it was Shaheen Shah Afridi who was the culprit over there. But let's hope it's a good and dreamy start for Pakistan, and we hope that for the sake of Pakistan this team gels well and they get going. And we have to talk about how this our opening pattern is going to be and what is going to be the 1 down 2 down situation, because there has been a lot of talk about that displacing the openers and one of them may have to go down or be removed from the playing 11. That is going to be a massive ask, but all in all you are going to get a brilliant challenge, and Shaheen Shah Afridi wouldn't have asked for a better opportunity.
But Usman, interestingly, Williamson still remains the captain for New Zealand even in the shortest format of the game.
I think there is not about his captaincy. He's a brilliant player. He's an excellent captain. He was excellent in under 19 as well. And many of those players are coming along with him from the under 19s with the likes of Bolt, Southee, and there was Corey Anderson. He's no more here. And I think Kane Williamson has been doing pretty well. He's a pretty attacking captain and he's a good T20 captain as well, going along with his test and one-day captaincy. I think now he's no more a test captain. But as far as T20 is concerned, I think for this World Cup he is going to carry on, and there is a lot of consistency that is going on in this New Zealand side, and that tells a lot about how they are resting their players and their captain. Look at what happened in the 2023 World Cup when he did not play majority of the test matches. They still wanted him to be around because his brain works pretty well in cricket matches, and there is no surprise about it that he is still captaining the side, and they know that when he's not the captain, who is going to take over. So there is the consistency works a lot, and that gels the team as a whole.
Absolutely. Kashif, it's interesting because you also mentioned, that argument of being technically very sound. Both of you gentlemen did. Now, Kane Williamson is regarded as the most technically sound batters out there when you talk about a couple of these batters. And interestingly, he still enjoys an average of 33 and a strike rate of 123 in T20 cricket as well.
For New Zealand, as far as my memory goes back, they not make captains, they create leaders. Starting from Martin Crowe in 1992, he was a leader of the team. Then it was, okay, let's forget for Lee Germon, but after that, Stephen Fleming, he was the leader of the team. Daniel Vittori for some time, and then the Kane Williamson. Yes, Brendan McCullum, and then the Kane Williamson. So when we go through their history, it's all leaders. And this is where this is very important, because once you create a leader, or once a captain step up to the role of the leader, everything gels in quite beautifully. And we still remember those days when we see a team's names on the paper with Stephen Fleming, and we can argue that they can bat vertically upwards or the downwards, because Daniel Vittori, one match he's playing at number 10, and simultaneously we came to know that he'll be opening in the next match. So this is where limited resources, they can maneuver those resources, and they know how to put a great fight with an average team. But this time around, after Brendan McCullum, they are above average team. They've been the champions of inaugural World Test Championship, so they knows their game. As far as Kane Williamson is concerned, I still believe, combining the average with the strike rate, you have to be there around 161K. So with the average of 120, the strike rate of 123 and an average of 33, that is around 160. This is very good, because the more the strike rate is, the less the average is. And when we talk about the T20, we have to have a player who can play the first ball and who can go and carry on play the last ball of the innings, which we call normally the sheet anchors role. And Kane Williamson is very good at it.
Absolutely. I think the last time these two teams faced each other was the ICC World Cup, where Pakistan at a revised target had been able to successfully win that match. So that was interesting. But the fact is that it's going to be a very important assignment, considering that there are 5 T20 internationals involved in this series, and the first test for Shaheen Shah Afridi. Maybe Pakistan can get a few combinations going every now and then as well, because we've already announced that squad as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the team. But Malik Usman, Kashif Majid, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the show. That, of course, wraps it up. But like I said, that this T20 assignment is going to be very important. You've got a T20 World Cup in the United States of America and the West Indies in June. So better to get your combinations right. And of course, I know a lot of people are going to still be vouching for the PSL. But then again, it's always great to have a T20 series in New Zealand, and with talks surrounding many players of making a comeback as well. You never know. Well, that wraps it up from me and the entire team of Sports Extra. It's goodbye for now.